Natural families. We don't have the second part of the intro, Mr. Anderson. I missed that. That's okay.
Awake thou that sleepest. Arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you find out that God's not too happy with what...
Awake thou that sleepest. Arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
A good one for you this morning. Got a good one for you this morning. Stay tuned. There's a lot to go over. Brad Dicus, first hour, Pacific Justice Institute. They're winning. And get her done. Get her done. We're going to talk about Blackwater, honey dippers. Speaking of which, Concordia, California. This is what's happening to us. And I'm going to get Tom in here. Tom has an event he wanted to talk about, or something that happened this week. Concord, California School. We're going to rename from Minutemen. Remember that name, Mr. Anderson? Minutemen?
It's familiar, yes, sir.
To Bears, because it's offending recent immigrants in the when you come to the United States, the idea is assimilation. Huh?
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be, refreshed. This is to assimilate.
You come here because you like who we are.
Yep.
And you're running away from who you don't like.
You don't want to come here. You're diluting a culture, a very successful culture, folks, that is established by the laws of nature and nature's God. No justice, no peace this morning. Going to bring Brad on here shortly. I want to talk about something that I teased about, something about Hawaii. And, it's a shame what happened in Hawaii. It is a shame. And whether this is natural or somebody took a laser beam and did it, to me, it doesn't make any difference because it is a tragedy. If it's a laser, what can we do about it? Okay. Or could it have been, go ahead.
Who's shooting the laser? I don't know.
Oh, we shoot them, right? Or whether it's weather-related, climate change, dry grass, lack of rain, electrical wires that are still connected, heavy winds, wires down, fire up.
Oh, somebody said it was pagan worship that was causing God's revenge.
Well,
or wrath.
Maybe. I think that group is one we're going to talk about. By the way, I'm going to let Tom in before we do this. Let's bring Tom in. Tom has something, and I'm going to talk about somebody that predicted what was going to happen in Hawaii 3 days before it happened. Tom, come on in, brother. What's on your mind?
BJ.
Why don't you bring him in, Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Anderson, how you doing, gentlemen?
Bless.
Something pretty amazing happened to me this week. As you know, I've been battling for the last 2 years against the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, mandates, and then doing the blood clot survey for the white fibrous clots, showing the dangers of the vaccine itself. This last week, starting this last Wednesday, the Cincinnati had its Western Southern professional men's tennis tournament, and the women were there too. So I bought some very expensive tickets, don't ask how much, to be in attendance on this Wednesday, the 16th of August, at the very first singles match played by Novak Djokovic.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Novak, he's currently number 2 in the world. He's been banned from the United States for the last 2 years for not taking the vaccine. So he's missed out on a lot of terrific tournaments that he could have won. As you know, he's chasing after the all-time record. In fact, he has it right now. He has 23 Grand Slam victories, so he has the most ever of any men's tennis player. But so I went to the tournament on Wednesday with my sister Jenny, and I wore this shirt. I don't know if you can read it or not.
Pure Shot.
by a.
Take me out of the picture, Mr. Anderson, or yourself out, and let's see if we can get the full picture of this.
It says pure shot by a pure blood.
There you go.
You just give me the screen.
There you got it. Pure Shot by a Pure Blood. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I was only 5 rows up in the stands, and his match actually ended early. He was playing gentleman Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, and his opponent had to retire at the end of the first set with an injury. But I stood down at the very edge because I wanted to personally thank Novak for standing up against the jab, and I held up this shirt for him. See how Novak is spelled N-O-V-A-K. Do you see how I spelled his name? Novak Djokovic is his own man. Down there in the O is where you may see, I don't know if you can get a close-up, he signed his name right by the O.
I get it.
BJS, what happened is he signed a bunch of kids' tennis balls. They had these large yellow tennis balls, oversized, and autographs on. He's signing those. He comes over to my side of the court and he passes me actually. Then he goes and he signs a Serbian flag. He's from Serbia. And there was a bunch of Serbian fans there. He signed their flag and met with them. And then the last person he came to was me, BJ. And as I held that shirt, I was going to give him the shirt, but before I started giving the shirt, he started signing it. So I can't give it to him now. He's signing it for me. So as he was signing it, I said, God bless you, Novak, for standing strong against the COVID vaccine tyranny. And he just looked at me and he smiled and he nodded his head up and down like that. And then BJ, he did something I didn't expect. He took the pen out of his right hand and he put it in his left hand. And then he extended his right hand to me to shake it.
Oh.
Yeah. It was a special moment, BJ. I went there to honor him for all he's done for us. He's been a voice for millions of people around the world, who want freedom. He sat for 2 years fighting for freedom rather than trying to chase after trophies. And he's honoring me by wanting to shake my hand for supporting him. So it was just a special moment. After he did that, I went around the entire inside of the stadium with the shirt showing, hey, Novak likes the shirt. He signed it. They made him sit for 2 years because he didn't take this stupid vaccine. And then I went around the outside of the stadium and I did the same thing for about a half hour until I finally collected some security people behind me and they asked me to leave with my sister. And I politely said, okay, I'll leave. But my mission had been accomplished because my mission was to thank Novak and, tell him I'm ashamed of what my country did to him. And it's just amazing. There was other people there that were showing signs like, we love you, you're the GOAT, you're number one. Yeah. But nobody, they did an on-court interview after the match was over because it ended early. They felt like they needed to give the fans something because, the match ended about an hour early. And they asked him, well, how's it feel to be back in Cincinnati after a couple of years? And Novak is so gracious. He didn't, he said, if, I missed it, I feel, he could have said, well, I would have liked to have played, but you didn't let me because I didn't take the jab. But he was real gracious as he always is. So I just wanted to tell you that story. It was a very special night for me to meet my hero, a man who stood up for us all and gave us a voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom and a lot of people, most of the people that listen to this show today, are participating patriots. They're not passive patriots. They're participating patriots. Now, Tom is not a participating patriot because he showed up in Cincinnati with good shirts, okay? He's earned the right to show up in Cincinnati with those shirts and to be noticed. He's been participating. He lost a job, and I think $160,000 a year because he wouldn't take the jab. How many of you would do that, folks? Seriously, how many of you would even think about doing it? Or how many of you would criticize somebody for doing it? God bless you, Tom. God bless you. And Godspeed.
Thanks, BJ.
Keep multiplying.
Not to mention the division in the family and so many other things. It's been a tough road, but honorable.
Tom, you're doing good things. And people need to know that in your family, in your neighborhood, in the state need to know that you're doing good things. Not you alone, but you are doing good things. And you
It's
need to
all
be
for-
respected for that. Go
It's
ahead.
all for God's glory. I
It
do
is.
it because I'm trying to warn people about these jabs, that they're bad, and Big
Yep.
Pharma's not stopping. And I want to recognize heroes like Novak and like you too, BJ and Kevin, for doing what you do. Thank you.
Speaking of warning, I'm going to get back to our Hawaii situation. Prior
Thank
to
you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom, a lot. Yes, brother. Prior to the fire on August 8th, I was doing some research and I stumbled across an article and I went, wait a minute, I was looking for articles from 10 years ago. So I stumbled across this article, and the article said that this group had predicted that Hawaii was going to be destroyed. Okay. And I'm going, 10 years ago, somebody said this? And I looked at the date on it. Keep in mind, August 8th is when the fire was. The date on the article was August 6th, 2 days before the fire in Maui. And they were talking about 3 churches in Maui. 3 churches in Maui. That's what this group was talking about.
Want me to bring that up?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, not just yet. Not just yet. On August 4th, you're going to see it here. This is the group. And the group is the Westboro Baptist Church based in Kansas. You know who Westboro is, right? Yeah. Claimed that Hawaii will be utterly destroyed at their service on the 6th. The churches of Hawaii have doomed the inhabitants with lies about eternal God. Westboro Baptist Church said in a statement announcing a protest of the 3 churches in Hawaii, the watchers must and will publicly pronounce the warning. The watchers would be the Westboro Baptist Church. It's not, they were going to travel there, but here's from the notice that Mr. Anderson up Friday, August 4th, 2023, Westboro Baptist Church. Churches of Hawaii have doomed the inhabitants with the lies about the eternal God. The watchers must and will publicly pronounce the warning on Sunday, August 6th, which is at their church service. And then Hawaii is going to be utterly destroyed. It is the nature of the human to sin against the Creator. The watchmen who were appointed in Providence to warn the inhabitants of Hawaii utterly failed. Instead of warning against sin and death, and they're talking about the pastors, the churches, the Christians, the watchmen. Instead of warning against sin and death, they have championed the cause of idolatry, fornication, adultery, sodomy, pride. Every behavior God called abominable and swore would bring destruction. The warnings have failed. Soon judgment comes. A shaking of heaven and earth so severe, the islands will be literally undone. The people will perish, but the servants of God at the Westboro Baptist Church know and love our King and know that the scripture teaches that some of the human race will be delivered. We will therefore go and preach to the churches of Hawaii. I don't know when they went or when they were planning on going. I imagine their trip kind of got cut short, but I found it absolutely amazing. Of all the prophets out there, that I would stumble across, and you know what? It's not in the news. It's just not in the news. You don't see it there.
Here's
Wonder
another.
why.
Here's
Go ahead.
another interesting meme. Anyway, a note I picked up from Facebook, and I don't know what to think about this one, but anyway, it's just interesting with what you're talking about. The question is, how did somebody get a book published so soon about the fire?
Yeah, that was yes. Yeah, right at how soon was that after the fire, Mr. Anderson?
2 or 3 days. This meme came up, or this, yeah. I saw it 2 days ago. And wondering how this guy was able to write a book. So it says for climate change. So I'm curious to know if I don't know. Conspiracies run wild, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
About as wild as fires.
And we have to be very careful with that because, folks, we have limited energies, we have limited time, we have limited resources. If you can change something, let me back up. If you see a need and you see a way to fulfill that need, then go for it. Okay? But it's so easy this day and age, and I think about Fox News. It's so easy to get all that negative information and become addicted to it. Tomorrow has to be even worse. And if you don't hear it, you imagine it. And what does that do? We need soldiers, and I'm going to call them honey dippers, but I'll explain later on that. We need soldiers in the Army, folks. We need soldiers in the Army. And I'm just not seeing them. I'm not seeing them. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back from the break, we're going to have Myra come in and maybe help us out biblically. B.J. Edwards, along with Mr.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
And we are back. Mr. Anderson, why don't you bring Myra in? And we don't have our guest yet. I don't know what happened to Brad. Maybe if you send them another email, Mr. Anderson. I can't from this point. I don't know whether you can either.
No, I can't either.
You don't have phone number for them, do you?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, hopefully they'll show up. If not, it's just going to be us peons.
It'd be us.
Yeah, be us. Be us, not BS, Mr. Anderson. Be us. Speaking of be us, Myra, welcome to Last Call.
Well, thank you, BJ. Good morning.
You're talking about
BJ.
Bible study, right?
Yes. It's so good to be here with you guys. It is a blessing to me. And Holy Spirit, please make yourself at home. You're at home at Last Call. I have Philippians 4:4-9. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there's any virtue, and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. The things which ye learned and received and heard and saw in me, this do, and the God of peace will be with you. Hallelujah.
Thank you. Brad, by the way, our guest this morning, hopefully our guest this morning, is out in California. And I don't know whether because of the winds, they're having transmission problems, whether they got the link or not. We're going to go ahead and continue the show. And hopefully Brad will be able to join us sometime this morning.
Oh, I don't get the morning off?
Well, go ahead and talk, Mr. Anderson. We got a few.
Go ahead and talk. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot going on. If you look left, you look right, where do you start? Boy, I don't even like this subject, but you can talk about Donald Trump a little bit and what they're doing to him and the legal system. We mentioned justice earlier, and you got to wonder where do you get justice in an unjust land?
There are places.
There are places.
Yeah, let me read some headlines and then you continue. Target promises modification to pride displays following boycott fallout. Fifth Circuit rules against mailing abortion pills and ignoring women's injuries. Senator Joe Manchin's bio-remorse on the Inflation Reduction Act. He was one of the first champions of the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah. Who coincidentally is in a tough re-election campaign and now questioning the way that Biden administration had carried out the law. Look at brother, you trusted Joe Biden. You believed in him. That's your bad. You were warned. Now, I even heard he's thinking about denouncing his Democrat standing. Probably end up becoming an independent. They're talking about him becoming a Republican in name only. We have a few of those, don't we, though? Anyway, House Judiciary Committee subpoenas DOJ, FBI records for social media censorship. Well, we'd like to have a piece of that, wouldn't we, Mr. Anderson? 2 weeks before the election, they took down 2 or 3 of our sites. We couldn't on Facebook.
Yes. And our YouTube channel many times.
Yeah. And I love this. Anheuser-Busch Hair Billy Bush offers to buy Bud Light brand back to right the ship. Said he would be the first to buy back Bud Light should the beer's parent company, AB InBev, want to sell it. If they don't want the brand, listen to this. If they don't want that brand any longer, send it back to the Bush family and we'll make the brand great again.
God.
I love it. Make the brand. That sounds familiar.
Who are they stealing that from?
And I got this 1 million moms. That's Skittles, which is manufactured by Mars. Yeah, you're right. Is now actively supporting the LGBT agenda. Skittles just launched a marketing campaign promoting a transgender lifestyle on its new candy wrapper. The new candy wrapper displays the phrases Black trans lives matter.
Oh my goodness.
Joy is resistance. Folks, these are all opportunities, by the way. These are all opportunities to participate.
Yeah. Stop eating candy.
Well,
save your health.
Should do that. Should do that anyway.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Skittles released their pro-LGBT packaging in partnership with the Gay and Lesbian Alliance, in partnership with the Natural Family Foundation. The GLAAD, by the way. The package is predominantly black and white with a thin rainbow running across the wrapper. Animated young people play happily along the package's rainbow path, a clear marketing ploy to attract the attention of children.
Well, who else?
Yeah, instead of sticking to selling candy, Skittles is attempting to turn Why is all this happening? Number one, because there's no resistance. Number two, because that's the nature of man, isn't it? Isn't that the nature of man? Not to do good? But the Bible tells us not to do good is a sin if you know it's to do good. So we're going to have to do something. I was going to get into this during the second hour of the program, but I'm going to do it now because our guest is he may be quarantined. In the United States of America, I want you to think of this. Don't think in terms of America as red and blue. Don't think of it in terms of that. I want you to think in terms of it as clear, gray, and black water. Okay? Clear water, gray water, and black water. Now, if you go to states like California, that would be all black. That would be a black water state. You know what black water is, by the way, don't you? RVers know what black water is.
Sewage.
Yes. Yeah. There's brown water, and there'd be some brown water states too, and some gray water states. There'd be gray water, black water cities. New York would be one, right? And there'd be a black water area, which would be Washington, D.C. And I want y'all to think of yourself as honey dippers, okay? You know what honey dippers do, don't they? They go out and clean out the black water out of septic tanks. That's what honey dippers do. They clean it up. And folks, that's what we're really doing. We're trying to clean this mess up. The United States started with a clear water that was brought by the laws of nature and nature's God. That's what you have. That's what we had. And immediately you had Americans, how do I say this? Putting something in the water that made it black, made it gray, made it darker than what it was to begin with.
Human refuse.
Yeah. Deposits, human deposits.
That's it. Deposits.
Yeah. So and we're going to bring an incredible honey dipper on the second hour, Glenn. I mean, he's been at it for a while. I mean, the stories that he told me and that we've been talking about, a lot of similarities, Mr. Anderson. When you start cleaning up that black water, sometimes you get a little bit of it on you, don't you? And there's flies, and there's
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a pleasant job.
but you can keep. I want to bring JC in here because I think JC is a honey dipper from way back. I got him in there. Hey, JC.
Oh, well, he'll go in and out because I hit the button.
Okay, bring him back in. There we go, JC. What do you think about being a honey dipper? Are you a honey dipper, JC?
Well, I missed part of your definition of the honey dipper, but it's crazy.
But basically, a honey dipper takes care of septic tanks and clears out all the human waste. And we started out in America with clear water, and then it kind of got little gray, little muddy, and then it became brown. And there's areas of the United States which are just absolutely black water. And
I think I'm to the point where I need to take my muck boots off because they're clear full.
But you go out regularly and do a little honey dipping, don't you?
Yes, we do.
What you got going on now?
Yeah, just trying to keep afloat, just come out of the sewage of Christians belittling each other and ripping on each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got more Christians backstabbing each other. And right now we're in a spell where we've been doing the honey dipping, and now all of a sudden it seems like some of them are stepping back. They're like, whoa, this is getting a little hot. So we're kind of dealing with that right now. But I've got a good night coming up. We got Harry Clappinger and Tom Dunn coming in the garage. So the ones that want to be here will be here, and the ones that don't won't be. So
Harry Clappinger was someone we had on the broadcast 3 weeks ago, I think. And Harry is going after those, I don't even know what you want to call them. They're not human beings that take young children and make prostitutes out of them.
perfect.
Female, they don't care. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
They're demonic perverts,
Yep.
pedophiles.
Look at honey dipping is a stinking job. All right. And when people see what you're doing, they're going, they're going to make excuses as to why they won't get involved in honey dipping. They won't. I think Tom wants to come in and make a comment. Go ahead, Tom. I got him.
Yeah, you gentlemen, you're right on, and people sometimes don't even want to admit that they're stuck in the black water.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, when I went down to that tournament on Wednesday, there was nobody else there with a sign that, that with any kind of apology for Novak Djokovic. They just wanted to pretend like it never happened. The media, the tennis officials that were running the tournament, the crowd, it was all like, oh, everything's fine. And, they were just trying to gaslight us into believing that everything's fine now. This man had not been wrong for 2 years in a row. It to me, I was watching last night again the DVD of the new movie that Steve Dace came out with called Nefarious. It's an excellent movie. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to see it. People can buy it on Amazon. I think you can also stream it as well. But it's about a convicted prisoner who is sentenced to be executed at midnight that night, and a psychologist is brought in to determine whether or not he is crazy or not, because he claims that he's possessed by the devil. So the whole movie is basically a back and forth of words between the psychologist and the prisoner. And it takes place in one room, basically. The whole movie does. It's about an hour and a half, but it's just Christian bombshell after Christian bombshell. It's meant to as a conversion movie for those who don't know Christ and don't know what Satan's up to. But he talks in the movie, the guy that plays Satan, about how people are lured in gradually. Like you say, the water starts clear for them, then it starts to get gray as they start to do minor sins, and then as they do more major sins and sins for longer, then the water starts to get black for them.
And like the frog, you kind of get used to the smell, if you will, or the heat in the case of the frog. But that's what we've done in America. We've kind of gotten used to the smell, and some of us are just holding our noses. We're doing the best we can. We're going to hold our noses again, but we're not going to get involved in it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when I went around with the shirt on Wednesday after Novak had signed it, and I was telling people about how this man had been wrong, for 2 years not being allowed to play because he wouldn't take the dumb jab. There were some people that would say, yeah, right on. There was a few that gave me some negative comments as well. Like, put that SH blank T away. Like they were ashamed to see the shirt. So I think it reminded them of, a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of younger people didn't, give me high fives or say they like the shirt. It's like, they've been indoctrinated by our schools these days into being, into fear, into just obeying authority. And if that authority says take the shot, then you take the shot. So it was interesting. And BJ, I guess my question for you and Kevin and maybe Myra, if you want to bring her on, is how do we get the people out of this kind of zombified state where they don't want to, admit there's evil when it's plain right in front of your face? You see it, they know it's happening, but for some reason they don't want to make a stand against it. What do you think, Mr. Anderson?
Well, I think part of it is, and I read, and I can't tell you the scripture right now. Myra will probably be able to, but it's the Lord said, we can go to Romans 1, right? He'd send a strong delusion. They want to, so they would believe their own lies. And it's hard. I think it's hard for us to recognize. We that see, we have our eyes and ears open, and we can receive the truth, and we can hear the Lord's voice, and the Holy Spirit dwells within us, because that's what happens when you get born again. And we it's hard for us to comprehend the ignorance towards evil, and they seem to see it as normal, and it's disheartening. It saddens me to hear you say how the young people resist what you're saying. I mean, it seems like such an obvious thing. Medicine, vaccines, anything like that is a personal thing. It's, and they chant "my body, my choice," yet they insist for you to do with your body with, which you don't want to do.
Sheep.
What gives them the right or the incentive?
They don't know any better, Mr. Anderson. They are sheep. And
yeah, exactly.
Sheep are dumb. They don't even know how to find water. Okay, they don't know how to. That you put them in a field, they'll eat anything that's out there. They won't discriminate. They'll just eat anything, and I mean anything, even if it kills them. If a sheep goes down, they die. Okay, for some reason a sheep goes down, they don't have enough sense to get up, and that's what we're dealing with. And we got to end up being shepherds here, okay, in our families, and that is so. Wow, Tom, Glenn, who we're going to be bringing on, everybody else, Mr. Anderson, myself, we are out there in the battle fighting, and one of the biggest battles we fight is within the family, and it's so heartbreaking to have to do that. But there again, and I'm looking at myself as well as anybody else. I didn't. When I was being brought up, it was everybody's equal. Okay, you want to be a friend of the child. Your wife is a co-equal with you, and we're all just one big happy family, right? But what we didn't realize is that you learn authority and morals in the family. Now, if you're co-equal with everybody else, how do your children, or your wife for that matter, learn authority? You don't. I mean, it's brilliant. It's genius what they did to us. It's absolute genius. But that doesn't mean we can't overcome that. We need to recognize, and again, I use the scenario, we live in an amoral and unjust nation. We're an unjust nation because we're amoral. We're amoral because the church is basically dysfunctional. The church is dysfunctional because the family is broken, and family is broken because the fathers just haven't taken their role. They've been dysfunctional. Now, it's not an easy job to get it back, but we need to recognize that we do have to get that back.
And they haven't followed God either. The minute they stop following God, the wheels come off and you go right off the tracks, don't you, Myra?
Yes, absolutely. And in regard to what you spoke about, Brother Tom, my dear Brother Tom, about the psychology about possession, it's between real and delusional. For example, if somebody comes over and meets diagnostic of depression, which is one of the most common diagnoses nowadays, depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and I do believe, in general, United States is suffering from PTSD, most of the citizens. So what is real and delusional? And they go by facts. So if somebody comes over with depression and they meet all that criteria in the diagnostic manual, however, that person all of a sudden was not able to speak another language, or that will be a sign that is something that is not delusional and it's real and it's above the norm of the diagnosis. So that's how you will see it in psychology doesn't want to admit of it. And as a matter of fact, unfortunately, psychological principles lead people to hell because they don't include Christian principles, and that needs to be turned upside down, where Jesus is the main intervention.
But you get in
And
trouble. You're a counselor.
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as an MC. I
Mhm.
interrupt. Okay. You're a counselor. Okay. As a counselor, you can't use the term Jesus Christ or biblical phrases because you'll get in trouble. And you know what I'm talking about, Myra. But
Yes.
you can use natural law. Is a natural law that a child needs a mother and a father, one male, one female. And there's all the other natural laws that if you start taking a lot of drugs, there's going to be an issue. You know, Ohio, dear God, talk about turning into a dark state. Ohio has two issues on the ballot in November. Number one is where it's okay if 50 plus 1% of the population agrees, it'll be okay to kill a child up to the date of birth, or probably beyond that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And number two, taking parental rights away from parents even further. They're already away. When you put your child in a government-run school, you turn them over to others. Go in there and trust those teachers, right? Go in there and trust those. I'll tell you what, Mr. Anderson, I want to take a break because we're due for one. And then
what you're talking about is giving the state the authority over you for your child, for your family.
Yep. And the other half is they're going to try to legalize marijuana. And you know what Ohio and the world needs is another inebriate, right? Isn't that what we need? One more inebriate?
No.
Come on. Well, you're going to need it if they pass that one amendment. You're definitely going to need it.
Talk about dumbing down society.
Yeah. B.J. Edwards Long, Mr. Anderson. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Quick break.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we are back. So, Myra, I won't apologize for interrupting you because that's my job. All right. And I can see Glenn in the background. He's going to be our guest in the second hour. I think Glenn is chomping at the bit to get in the conversation, right? We'll let you in at 10. We'll let you out of your cage. Okay, at 10 o'clock. Got a call, by the way, with apologies from our guest. Was supposedly our guest for the first hour. Just could not make it in today to the studio, and we'll get him at another date. But he did call. God bless him, and we'll get him soon because we need to talk about PGA because they're having all kinds of victories, and we need to hear about them. Not please. I don't want you sitting back eating your popcorn and applauding. All right, Myra, now go ahead.
Right, thank you. In regard to what Mr. Anderson said, he is absolutely right. I agree what he says about people being blinded and just not knowing Jesus. That's that's the problem. 2 Thessalonians 2:10-12. And with all deceitfulness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be them who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. And that's what Mr. Anderson said. Thank you.
That was the scripture I was thinking of. Thank you, Myra.
Hey, Mr. Anderson, I want to give you an example of somebody that's dirtying the waters and how this is done. Look at our enemy.
Not me.
Our enemy is brilliant in terms of using words, but we can cut through all that if we choose to discern and base our assumptions, if you will, on the Bible as versus what sounds. Look, a lot of this stuff sounds good. Again, that's the nature of man. The nature of man is not to do good. And anyway, would you bring up that video from Hillary? And I'm not talking about the hurricane that's coming. This is the past hurricane.
Yeah, this is hard to watch, but okay.
Yeah, have a bag ready.
When we were watching Gwen Keys-Fleming and Lawrence speaking just a moment ago about the mandatory minimum prison sentence in Georgia for a RICO conviction, Ms. Keys-Fleming noted, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, and I saw you chuckle. Clearly, we are getting ahead of ourselves, and we are thinking about potential sanctions as a result of any of these trials. Let alone, there's these things getting to trial. There's the question of conviction. There's the question of sentencing. But then there is, at the end of that road, the prospect of the prohibitive favorite for the Republican presidential nomination being in prison.
Yeah.
Do we, as a country, have an interest in him not going to prison so that we can still call ourselves a country where leading politicians don't get locked up?
Look, I think that's going to be a much debated issue throughout the country over the next months, because holding him accountable can happen in a number of ways. Prison, obviously, is one of them, but there are other approaches that can be taken. I think one of the important comments that came out of this long day down in Georgia was by the former lieutenant governor when he said, this is a pivot point. The Republican Party needs to move away. Quit being part of a cult, in effect, is what he meant, where you follow someone who lies to you, undermines legitimate processes of government. Move away from him politically. And, trying to get back to politics in the sense that we used to think we had it, despite all of the human frailties that accompanied it, where, you had parties that would sanction and hold accountable their own members. I was on the impeachment inquiry staff. You cannot make up my life, And so back in 1974, when the impeachment by the House Judiciary Committee was voted on, 4 Republicans voted to impeach President Nixon. Then 3 members of the Senate, leading Republican senators, I think it was Barry Goldwater and Howard Baker and I think Hugh Scott, went to see President Nixon and said, this was a bipartisan vote, you need to resign. Well, that's almost impossible to imagine today because of what's happened to the Republican Party, what they've allowed to happen to themselves. So I hope that we won't have accountability just for Donald Trump, and if there are others named in these indictments along with him for their behavior, but we'll also have accountability for a political party that has just thrown in with all of the lies and the divisiveness and the lack of any conscience about what was being done to the country.
In terms of getting out of this and coming out of this crisis stronger, hopefully, for having confronted, I think, very dark prospects in terms of what this means for democracy, it does feel like the Republican Party as a whole is not ready to make that turn. And I'm thinking really about Ron DeSantis as the guy who's running second to Donald Trump in the Republican primary right now, he is promising that there shouldn't be an independent Department of Justice.
Yeah, well,
under any
he's
Republican
promising
president.
anything to try to get some attention. It's kind of pathetic, isn't it?
He's also removed 2 elected prosecutors in Florida who were chosen, who were elected, who he stepped in and removed them. Georgia Republicans have given themselves the power to remove elected prosecutors as well, just ahead of Fani Willis making this decision. That law will go into effect about 7 or 8 weeks from now, which will give them that opportunity. It does feel like the idea of law enforcement being used as a tool of partisan politics is something that, with whatever justification, the Republican Party is really embracing and ready to run with or without Trump. That feels like a big step in the
that's yet to be
direction.
determined, Rachel. That is yet to be determined. I think it is possible that there are many now in the Republican Party who have signed on to that kind of approach to politics, that undermining of democracy, undermining the rule of law. But the shadow of Trump looms so large over all of them. It's really hard to know, once he's off the scene, one way or the other, politically or because of accountability arising out of the various indictments he faces, whether or not backbone will all of a sudden be regrown, whether conscience will once again be part of the Republican Party ethos. We don't know. We hope, because it would be for the good of the country that were to happen. But if it doesn't, the only way we can possibly contest it and defeat it is through the rule of law, as we're seeing with these prosecutors at the federal and now the state level, but also through elections, where we have to defeat those who want to weaponize divisiveness, who want to undermine democratic values and institutions. And that should be, frankly, nonpartisan, not just bipartisan. People should all be saying what the so-called never-Trumpers, the former Republicans who are, now out beating the drums to say you cannot support him and you cannot support the people who support his attitude toward our country.
On the issue of sort of healing and getting better as a country on this, in reading your article in The Atlantic, I feel like I get the diagnosis. And you talk about Surgeon General Vivek Murthy having essentially diagnosed this problem of loneliness being a health problem in this country. You describe it as a real political problem as well. And I get, in a very fundamental way, this idea that, atomized, disconnected populations are really primed for extremism. That's part of what makes us vulnerable to the call of strongman leadership and authoritarianism, makes us susceptible to it like any other number of mature democracies around the world. What I don't get is the prescription for how to fix that, and whether that is a prescription that should come from people who want to be political leaders, or whether that's something we need to cure as a culture in some other way. I mean, what's the way out of it?
Well, I think it's cultural, political, and probably economic as well. I think we have to do a much better job of finding ways for people to work together again, work together on community projects, work together through existing organizations, whether it be, civic or religious. I mean, look at the outpouring of help for the people in Maui right now. I mean, that kind of volunteer effort that is so American, so much at the core of who we are when we are at our best. But I also think that we have to do a better job of trying to stand up against the divisiveness and against the constant stream of lies and falsehoods that come out of not just politicians, but also social media and other sources of information. So there's enough work for all of us to do. It's not just political leaders. It's really everybody saying, this country is too precious, too valuable, too important to allow it to continue to be fragmented the way it has been. And rebuilding that sense of trust and community is no easy task. I don't think anybody would argue with how difficult it would be. But there are ways of doing it. And let me just say, I don't think Joe Biden gets credit enough for trying to model responsible leadership. Just kind of getting up every day, doing the job. The legislative accomplishments that came out of his first year and a half were amazing. We're rebuilding our infrastructure. We're once again investing in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and so much more. We're trying to, from a legislative perspective, under his leadership, to put back into place some of the things that give people a sense, perhaps, of security and confidence, optimism about the future. And, what more can a leader do? I mean, really, when you come down and think about it, we've got Democratic governors now who are making school lunch free. That's a big deal because, unfortunately, we have a lot of kids who don't get adequate nutrition. And we have Republican governors who are lowering the age of employment so that 13 and 14-year-olds can now be put to work. That is, in a nutshell, kind of where we are. Why wouldn't we want to join hands and support families in a difficult time, and particularly try to give kids more stability to be able to have better choices instead of just ripping away every social support? So this has to happen at all levels of politics, government, but more broadly, society as well.
Tom says this is worse than bamboo splints. You couldn't hear him, Mr. Anderson, but I ran out of barf bags. I tried to get you to shut that down earlier. You understand what's happening here, folks? The implanting of negatives in your mind that you don't even know are happening, but they're planning them. The mess, a cult, lack of consciousness, identifying it with Nixon. I mean, these are very, very well educated in terms of how to market, how to brainwash people. And you need to understand that when you listen to it. I think you had a 2-minute warning. We'll get to that. There's an old saying to follow the money. Senior AI engineers are joining the level of doctors and lawyers on the list of job titles. They can get the nod from your demanding parents. All AI pros are commanding eye-popping salaries as companies race to lure qualified talent to help them adopt techies. Used to be an executive recruiter. I'd like to handle some of these folks. An AI whiz can expect an annual salary of, what do you think the annual salary would be for an AI tech? How about $900,000?
Whoa.
As a product manager, $210,000 to $358,000 as an engineering leader, $285,000 to $427,000 as a principal engineer on AI platform for the software company HubSpot. Zoom out. While all the AI frenzy means fat paychecks and employer-provided messages, cheers for some, Goldman Sachs thinks ChatGPT like tech could partially or fully automate 300 million full-time jobs worldwide. Let me tell you what they're going to automate. What you're thinking.
What you're thinking.
If you got sick of what you heard from Hillary, this is going to be so subtle, so stealth, that you're going to wake up in the morning, scratching and itching and wondered, I thought I don't think I was in a poison ivy patch. You were. You just didn't know it. And that's what's coming. We got a 2-minute warning, and we're going to get to our special guest in the second hour. Cannot wait to talk to Glenn. B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. You got that 2-minute warning up, Mr. Anderson?
Got it ready.
All right.
Here we go.
That the antagonists here, the dangerous evildoers, are half the human race. And those whose existence with regard to women is actually linked to love and family and life in real life. The separating of man and woman in this movie is not an accident any more than it's an accident that one of the Barbies in the movie is actually a transsexual, or that Barbie alludes to gay masturbation among the Kens in a movie aimed at children. What kind of culture pushes this on children? A sick culture, but it goes deeper. And here's the reveal. And it's there at the very opening of the movie. It's all there. The movie opens up with a scene of girls playing with baby dolls. The narrator says that since the beginning of time, girls have played with dolls. But, note the word but, leading into the idea that there's a problem in this. What is the problem? She says, but the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. Always and forever. Baby dolls are now a problem. And they were an endless, relentless, interminable problem. Just as important are the visuals. The girls are shown with dolls caring for them as would their mothers, holding them, nurturing them, feeding them, combing their hair. And interestingly, the girls appear unhappy, somber, or miserable, as if they're engaged in an act of slavery that they're forced to be part of. Which is interesting because the scene depicts girls playing with dolls. Note the word playing. You play because you want to play. It's something enjoyable, something you want to do, fun. But the film inverts that and depicts the play as slavery, another subtext of radical feminism. And something else. The opening is taken from Stanley Kubrick's science fiction 2001: A Space Odyssey. That opening. What does that opening scene focus on? Apes. Look at the apes here as they wake up. So the girls now wake up. So now the little girls are put into the place of apes. It's not an accident. It's not incidental. It's central to the scene and to the message. The girls are as apes. In Kubrick's film, the apes represent the primitive. So in Barbie, girls who play with baby dolls are represented as primitive, unenlightened. In other words, motherhood is primitive. Women as mothers, mother and child, it's a primitive, unenlightened, negative state. Again, the doctrines of radical feminism. In Kubrick's movie, to answer the primitive state, an object appears, a monolith, an upright, rectangular stone slab. The apes are puzzled, disturbed, in awe. It's there to change them away from their primitiveness, their lowly state. So to answer the primitive state of women, as in motherhood, an object appears as a monolith, but it's Barbie. She stands above them as a colossal goddess or a towering idol of a goddess, and she's there to transform them from their primitive state, linked to motherhood. In 2001, the apes cautiously approach the object, touch it, and back away. In Barbie, one of the girls, or primitive ape people, cautiously approaches the object, just like the apes, touches the leg of Barbie, and backs away. In 2001, the effect of the object is to transform the ape away from primitiveness, apeness, into enlightened apes, and the enlightened apes use bones to kill other apes. But in Barbie, the effect is even more profound, because in Barbie, she winks at them, the girls are mesmerized and transformed by her spell. As the ape lifted up the bone to kill an animal or an ape, the one girl lifts up her baby doll that she's been caring for, and what does she do? She smashes the baby doll against another baby doll, and against the rocks, the head of the baby cracks open, explodes. You see the decapitated head of a baby against a rock, just as the ape smashed the bone into the head of a dead animal carcass. And so the baby's head is decapitated while another baby is smashed into it and onto the ground. And in every direction is an explosion of flying baby pieces. In 2001, the ape throws his stick into the air. So the girl then throws into the air, the sky, the baby, to transform it into the words Barbie. This is the opening of the movie Barbie.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we are back, and I want to get to our guest this morning, and just a refresher. And I don't know whether Glenn picked up on what we're talking about. We started off this morning about assimilation. When you come to the United States, you assimilate into the culture, to the language. And we talked about a high school in California that called themselves the Minutemen, Concord High School, and are now becoming the Bears, because, well, it makes those folks that don't want to assimilate, that don't want to take our language or our culture and keep their own. Division is one of the most beautiful things that Satan does in terms of dividing Christians, families, you name it. He really does it. The other thing we're talking about is how in the beginning of America, you should look at it as a clear water. And then as America starts to progress, the water starts getting a little muddy, gets gray, some parts brown. And in America today, we actually have black water. And you all know what black water is. Go to Washington, D.C., that's all black water. California is mostly black water. New York City. You know who we're talking about. So that's where we are. And I've kind of classified myself now as a honey dipper. I'm gonna bring another honey dipper on with us. I'll go ahead and add him to the screen, Mr. Anderson. Glenn.
Good morning.
Oh, brother.
Good morning.
Motivate, Organize, Volunteer Citizens Action Coalition, MOVCAC. Something that you're intimately involved with, right, sir? Something you believe in.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on this morning. It's a real honor. I watched the show, and I'm honored to be here, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Thanks, Glenn. Glenn, you're what you're trying to do now. The thing that drives me crazy, I think that drives you crazy, is that, and this is like the Tea Party era, and the Glenn Beck era. We became very educated, and we could point out what's wrong there and point out what's wrong there. But a lot of us were just pointing out, and complaining. You formed a group in Ohio, of all places, and it became a very powerful group, and you started getting things done. And then what happened, Glenn?
When Obama was running, it became evident that something had to actually happen.
Amen.
And many groups were formed throughout Ohio. Many Tea Parties were formed, and out of that, there was a coalescing of groups, and we had what was called the Ohio Liberty Coalition, and it was incredibly strong, and it did a great job. And but as time moves forward and things move in different directions, people went different ways, and it tragically ended, which was a real tragedy.
Glenn, what caused people to go different ways? I mean, you're having success. You seem to be unified, and then all of a sudden, was it success that made you?
It was everything that I say today is just strictly my opinion. It reflects nothing of your show or actually much of anything. I'm just giving you my personal opinion.
All right.
In the one thing the left does very well, they focus together. They may hate each other, but they will actually focus together. And what happened was everyone wanted their own logo, their own ego. And so consequently, it was like looking at and I'm very bad with analogies. It was like looking at a tree full of leaves, and every leaf wanted to be its own entity. They didn't want to be a tree. They didn't want to be something non-movable. They just, everyone, including me and our group, we wanted to be much more smart, much more powerful than we remotely were. There was no branding of the Ohio Liberty Coalition.
Branding?
That was a real tragedy.
Branding? What do you mean by branding?
Branding, when my wife and I, after January 6th, said, okay, we got to change. We were a 912 project. We were known as Marietta 912 Project, Marietta, Ohio 912 Project. And we were not accomplishing much of anything. It was a great place to educate people, and it was great. So January 6th came, and we watched good people being destroyed. So
into that,
we said, okay, we're either going to change or we're going to shut it down. I can't do this. We're into our 15th year of doing this. So we dropped the name MOV. We went to a name MOVCAC, which originally meant Mid-Ohio Valley Citizens Action Coalition, but we had to extend that because chapters started growing everywhere. And so branding is every time everyone that we have gets a name card, and Everyone goes to an event, they wear their name card. And that name card is right there. That's what it looks like. Everyone knows what that looks like. On the back of that card, on that back of that name tag, is a QR code. And that QR code will take them right straight to a website, our website. So if they're in a meeting somewhere and someone says, how do I find you? They don't have to run around and try to find a business card that we have that is branded with a QR code on the back. They can simply take their name tag and hold it up and say, here you go. And every time we go to a board meeting, whether it's a board meeting, whether it's a school board meeting, a health board meeting, county commissioners, go to the governor's office, go to Secretary of State, everyone wears that name tag all over either the Capitol or the local school or wherever, but everyone knows that group is in the building. And without branding, no one knows we're there. It's like they don't even know we're there, but they see the branding and all of a sudden we become bigger than we really are. But we have a consistency of message, and doing that and teaching people and showing them that we must have action. And so after January 6th, no longer do we just have a meeting. Every meeting, which in most of the groups meet once a month. Our main meeting, which is held in Marietta, is twice a month, the second and fourth Mondays of every month. And now it is turning talk, just talk. People talk into action. I get so tired of hearing people say, I'm a Facebook warrior. I have no idea what that means, except that means they're not doing anything except talking. And that doesn't change anything. Action changes it. So every meeting, everyone gets at least one, if not two, actions that they need to accomplish before the next meeting in 2 weeks. And the meeting we have there, we stream to all of our other chapters. So they get that same message and the same branding for them to take to their board meetings, school board, health board meetings, library meetings. Most of these bureaucratic group meetings, whether it's a library board, your local health department, no one goes to those. No, we walk in with 6 or 8 people, just 6 or 8, and they think that it's been an invasion of Normandy. Why are you here? Well, because you're running our lives with a form letter. That's why.
Size matters. Go ahead.
And it does. And so consequently, not all of our people are 20 years old. Most of us are my age. But
man,
everyone gets a task that they can accomplish. And so teaching them how to use the tools that are available to them is very important. And structured teams.
It's person specific.
Is
it person specific? This is a task that we know you can do. So here's what we want you to do.
Yes. For example, if you were sitting in a meeting and we would say, this particular prosecutor in a county is not doing anything to curtail the distribution of these horrible books in the libraries that taxpayers pay for. Here's his picture. Here's his name. Here's his email. Here's his phone number. And here's where he lives. So in this week, you call, email, or go into the office and say, why aren't you doing what you said you would do? And they get a copy of whatever document he had when he ran for office and said, I want to protect the children, as in Wood County, West Virginia. The prosecutor said, I want to protect the children. Is he doing it? Absolutely not. But he likes to talk about being a protector of the children. But when it comes to protecting them, I just protect my job. So
You're shining light on their deeds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But giving people, I mean, not everyone has the confrontational ability to do that, but an email is not confrontational. It's impersonal. But send the email, make the call. Most politicians, if they get 10, my hand over here, 10 phone calls, thinks it's a tsunami. I mean, if you send 10 phone calls to an attorney general and you have the same message, same message, branded message, everyone speaks the same message, he thinks the state's been invaded. Now, where are these people coming from? Trust me, they want to know where these people are calling from, coming from, and who are they. And so if we don't have a branded image, and like your show, you have a branded image. When we go into the public square, we must have a branded image, or they have no idea where they were. For example, I'll give you a real quick example, and interrupt me anytime you want, because I just talk forever. So we went to Charleston, West Virginia, to the Capitol to have a meeting with the Attorney General, Secretary of State, and the governor.
How long ago?
Pardon me?
How long ago?
This was last year.
Last year. Okay. What was the purpose? Go ahead.
We only had about 45 people that could make it that day. So into the Capitol we go, and they're walking around, everybody with their handy dandy name tag on. An hour after we're there, we're getting messages. People are asking, who are these people? Where are they from? The Secretary of State was wanting to know, who are these people? They were sending messages to one of our leaders that was in the building, wanting to know, are you part of this group? Well, there was only 40 of us. They were acting as if it was some major union had descended upon the capital of West Virginia.
There's two things at work here. Number one is actions, and number two is numbers. And that's very important. It's action and numbers.
Exactly.
If they don't know you exist, and they don't know you're not alone, then you're not going to be successful with them. And Glenn, we can get into the details of this and the branding, and I appreciate that. But I want to get back to you have a choice in your life to do things that are probably more pleasant, be it golf or art or something more pleasant. But you saw a need out there, and you make a sacrifice. Family, whatever that sacrifice is going to be, you make it because you see that there's a huge issue in America today. And I describe it as black, we keep filling that black water tank up, and there's more of the tanks filling up in America, and we need more honey dippers. And your job is to find more honey dippers, and my job is to find more honey dippers. But sometimes it seems like the enemy is growing a lot faster than we are. Or is that just... Do you think there's more of us than there are of them, Glenn?
Activity is cyclical.
Okay.
I mean, it comes and goes for the conservatives, not the Republicans, the conservatives. And if life is good for them, then they are pretty much not too much involved. During COVID, when you go to our website, you can see unbelievable stories about how people lost their family members in these hospitals to intentionally for hospitals to terminate lives in hospitals because they made money off of it. So during that time, an average meeting would be 250, 300 people. And then when COVID went over, well, I lived through it. I lost my job, but oh well, I'm being paid anyway, so it doesn't matter. Life's good. And I bought a new house during the interim because now they're paying me to stay home and work, which I actually don't work. I just sit and do whatever I want. So consequently, the numbers go up and they go down depending on where the emotion is at that particular moment. So it's always like that. I've been always like that. And so you have to work that, you have to plan that system.
I get it. We're gonna have to take a break. We take a minute break at 15 minute 30, 45. going to take a quick break. And when we come back from the break, you'd mentioned COVID, and I knew it was going to spark a comment from Mr. Tom Haviland. Tom Haviland was working at a government facility, making about $160,000 a year, and refused to get the shot. Glenn. Lost his job. So when you brought up COVID, I knew that Tom was going to want to say something. Let's take a quick break, and we'll bring Tom back on with Glenn. B.J. Edwards along Mr. Anderson.
Last Call with B.J. Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Tom Haviland, meet Glenn Newman, and
Good morning,
Tom,
sir.
like I said, I told Tom a little bit about Tom, but Tom didn't just stop there after he lost his job. He got involved, but unfortunately, and maybe an organization like yours could have helped. Maybe that's one way to ask the question after Tom makes his comment. How could you have helped him, Glenn, or can you still help him? Go ahead. Your message, Tom Haviland.
Yeah, Glenn, God bless you for what you're doing. And you and BJ, you're absolutely right. We really can't accomplish a lot of things unless we have numbers. We can plant some seeds but individually. And as BJ said, I lost my job back in October of 2021 because I refused to take the COVID-19 vaccine. I left with a bang on the way out. I sent an email to a 3-star Air Force general telling him that he should be ashamed of himself for try to guilt us into taking the vaccine as opposed to standing up for our rights to decide for ourselves. I also sent that email to the 30,000 people that work at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I CC'd the whole base on the email. So I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was going to get a call and get fired from my job for embarrassing.
Half an hour later, a half
hour later, I got fired from my job for embarrassing the general in front of others. I then went ahead and stood at from the fall of 2021 to the fall of 2022 with a sign at a very busy street corner near the Air Force Base, a sign saying no vax mandate, trying to get, I probably saw 500,000 cars go by in the 120 days I stood there. And, most people, 70% wouldn't do anything. They were too busy in their day or didn't care. About a full 20% did honk their horns, cheered, gave me a thumbs up. They agreed to the sign that people should be able to make their own choice on getting the shot or not. But about 10% of them gave me a middle finger, said, F you, you're killing grandma, that kind of thing. So I got hate as well. But I was trying to warn the people about the jabs, and I had a megaphone with me, and I would talk throughout the year, especially in the summertime when people had their windows rolled down, trying to convince mothers not to get their kids the jab. So I was trying to, plant seeds, do the Lord's work, warn people about the dangers of the vaccine. But I was doing it as a solo guy. I also now am the vice president of the Greene County Tea Party. So I do work with a large group as well. We have over 100 people who come to our meetings every month. So we're still an active organization. But and they do some good work. We had a thing at a local YMCA where there was a trans person that was in the women's locker room undressing and causing trouble. And a group of people went out to protest that at Xenia at their YMCA. But you're absolutely right. You're more effective when you come in numbers. And the story I told at the very beginning of the show, where I went down to see Novak Djokovic at the tennis center in Cincinnati, and I was the only person in the stadium with any kind of shirt or sign that said anything about the vaccines or the fact that we should be ashamed of ourselves for banning this man from playing for the last 2 years because he wouldn't take the stupid vaccine. It would have been much more powerful had there been 20 people there with shirts on saying that, right? Or 40 people. That would have been fantastic. So I guess, Glenn, what are some of the tricks that you use to help motivate people?
Great question.
To get that large number of people reacting?
Thanks, Tom.
We'll start at the top. Before an invasion, there has to be an Air Force go in and bomb the crap out of the ground. You have to kill off most of the army you can. You have to have a plan of invasion. We have an intercessory prayer team that covers all of our chapters.
Whoa.
Every chapter has a minimum of one person that will be on that intercessory prayer team, or we don't form that chapter. And we have places waiting to become chapters. 2, they have to meet in a church.
I'm sorry. What? They have to where?
Amen, brother.
They
Where?
have to meet in a church.
Oh no.
But there's a problem there because of spineless preachers, not pastors, preachers. Getting into churches is very difficult. I mean, we have groups in Kentucky, Tennessee that are wanting to join everywhere, but they will have to be MOVCAC. They're not going to be their own name. No, that doesn't work. Tried that in Ohio. If every group in Ohio, I knew the people started the Greene County Tea Party. I was president of the Ohio Liberty Coalition. I've been all over Ohio at every Tea Party. Every Tea Party was an individual army. You can knock an individual army off in a heartbeat, or you don't even pay attention to it. Politicians are very good at understanding running the clock out. Having a meeting with an attorney general, and they say, only have a half hour. They want to talk for 29 minutes. You interrupt them saying, excuse me, we're here for a very important meeting. Here's our agenda. Bam, hand it to them and say, this man's going to speak. No one else speaks. One person, they speak. But back to your question on COVID. West Virginia was unique during COVID. We could dispense ivermectin.
Amen.
Ooh.
And we had people from, this is an international video. Whoa, I got to be careful here. We were prepared and provided life-saving material to people in many states. Plus, we learned, and I'm going to get to your immediate question, because in this area, we have way too many government offices. It's tragic. I mean, it is just tragic. So they throw the Hatch Act at every government employee. You speak, you're fired. You don't take the jab, Hatch Act, you're gone. They use the Hatch on.
What's the Hatch Act? Real quick.
This young man right here can explain it much better than I. But the Hatch Act says if you speak against the government, you lose your job in the public arena. The Hatch Act was years ago, and it was because Republicans are so blindingly weak. They never put, anyway, moving forward. So we had many, many, many people coming to us. Government employees were being forced to take the jab. So we spoke to several attorneys working that through, but the CARES Act, was so horrifically horrible. When a person walks into a hospital yet today and you sign in, you gave up all of your rights. All of your rights. People didn't even know that. So in doing this, we had meeting after meeting after meeting and bringing in attorneys how to fill out these forms, how to go around this and work your way through it. And many, 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 many saved their jobs and positions. But it was almost an everyday, it was almost a full-time job because we covered both Southeast Ohio and West Virginia, clear over to the border right next to our chapter in Romney, Ohio. Romney, West Virginia is within a half hour of Washington. And so they were just pouring out of there trying to, I mean, here we are, a nitwit group compared to the federal government or state government or county government. But we saved a lot of jobs. But again, we were branded. Every one of those groups was an MOVCAC. So when the attorney spoke, he spoke to the MOVCAC people. So whether they were in Charleston, West Virginia, whether they were in Wheeling, Morgantown, Bridgeport, Marietta, down in Southern Ohio, all those groups, they were still the same. And they all took that message.
I love that. I love the fact you did that. Yeah.
And we had to purchase because during the COVID time, once you went into hospital and you can just lay this right at the feet of Pence. When they got all these ventilators, the plan was put them on remdesivir, their kidneys fill up with water, then they put them on a ventilator. That's the reason they built those millions of ventilators to kill you. Anyway, they put you up on high levels of oxygen and then you couldn't leave the hospital. So we had to buy oxygen concentrators. $3,000 for these things.
Yeah.
Because if you came out of a hospital and they had you on 12 liters of oxygen, how long are your heart going to work when you came out of the hospital? We're going to save mommy. Really?
Wow.
Well, she'll be dead time she gets home. We found that out. I mean, we're a small group. We don't have multimillionaires pumping money into us.
Yeah, but using those badges, you made yourself look like a large group. And I think that's really a key because in the groups that I've been involved with, there's two big C's that keep groups from materializing in large numbers to do actions. And those two C's to me are comfort, as you mentioned earlier. People get too comfortable, so they don't feel like it's an emergency enough to participate. And the other thing is cowardice. They're too afraid to act because they feel like there's going to be a big negative repercussion against them. And there might be. But at what point do you have, at some point you have to fight for your freedom or else you are going to lose it. So are there any other things that keep groups from forming besides cowardice and complacency or comfort?
Pride. It's something, and I'll let you speak for yourself. But from when you ask that question, what I'm thinking is that, and we're getting into the silo thing. There's groups that are there because they believe that they've been called to do what they've done. They become experts in that. And if you follow our organization, you will win. Not if you go over here to the Natural Family Foundation or to Glenn's organization or another organization. It has to be our organization. And the one thing that I recommend, and I've talked to Glenn about, is I have to find something I like about an organization before I can ever say anything about it. Because my opening comment on me is, I really like the way you're doing this, as versus it's my way or the highway. I'm the expert here. You have to listen to me. I'm the one that wrote the book. I know it all. How close am I?
The issue is, and I've had real pushback. We can walk and whistle at the same time. We fought hard for the heartbeat bill in Ohio. Years we fought hard for that.
Wow.
Did the videos for from the beginning to end. We fought for that. Well, we also fought social issues and political issues, both. And a lot of times people will say, I like your meetings, but you too much preachy, too much prayer. Well, it's just a certain point of your life you can give up. So I suggest, sir or ma'am, find somewhere else to go, because we're not going to change. We are going to pray and we're going to work. So if we were to win the entire political war, but lose the moral high ground,
Amen.
We've lost.
Right.
Amen.
So
Amen.
You cannot divide the two. Our nation wasn't made up of strictly political issues. It was built on biblical platform. So
That'll preach.
And I have never deviated for that, nor will I. I won't. And so the groups that form, some will say, well, we don't have anybody who'll pray. Well, Zoom we'll send somebody and it will. Oh, well, we'll find somebody then. But
we're going to take a break, Glenn. And
Okay.
we'll go back, speaking of the Bible and prayer. Myra wants to get a word or two in. So B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last call. Speaking to Glenn Newman. And it is Motivate, Organize, Volunteer, Citizens Action Coalition. MoveCAC.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Mr. Anderson, if you bring Myra in, and while you're doing that, Glenn, you're going to have to change your name of your organization. It's got to be 3 letters, like Tea Party or something like that. It's just this MoveCAC. What can I do with it? We can talk about that. Myra, go ahead. Look, I'm an entrepreneur, Glenn, so I always know what best to do, right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. You've probably run into them, haven't you? Come on in, Myra.
Yes, I'm ready to come. Yes, thank you. Oh, yes. That is so beautiful how the Holy Spirit gave you honey dippers. And actually, in psychology, we know that just across the cultures, deep, low pitch voices are usually in position of authority. They tend to lead, and because the voice can give a signal that I am in authority and you follow. That
Can
is
you say that
deep,
again,
low.
Myra, please?
Sure. Deep,
I'm just
low
kidding.
pitch voices across the cultures are people that they are in position of action and leadership in what you describe as honey dippers. That is that is perfect. In a way, they give a reaction of fright, meaning you go into action, and that's the neurotransmitter that makes you do an action, and that is just so well put, honey dippers, and I really appreciate it. And Grant, I have a Bible verse for you because you're a man of action. Proverbs 14:23 to 24. In all labor there's a profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. The crown of the wise is their riches, but the foolish of the fools is a folly. Hallelujah.
Thanks, Myra. Myra's a counselor.
Thank you.
Along with being, I think you're a Christian, aren't you, Myra?
Yes, I love Jesus.
Amen. Amen. All right. You can stay on if you want, Tom. We've got about 29 minutes, well, 28 minutes. Okay. So let's resolve the problems in America. Let's get all the black water out in the next 28 minutes. What do you think?
I want to know, gentlemen, how the left, those that seem to be against us, seem to be so well organized.
Hate.
They come out in numbers. It seems like
hate. They make you an object of hate, and it's real simple. Real simple.
But I'm envious to a certain extent of their ability to mobilize their side. What do you have to say about that, Glenn?
I have struggled with that very statement, Tom, for years, literally. There was a group that did a tour years ago. It was called Nuns on the Bus. I don't know whether you remember them or not. Mm-hmm. And it was a big production. So in our little town, because the Marietta 912 project was there, Nuns on the Bus came to Marietta, Ohio. And the bus was well painted, signs, it was well branded, well stated, nuns on the bus. Were they nuns? Well, no one really knew if they were actually Catholic nuns or not, but they certainly had the exterior look of the habit. So we had 300 people protesting nuns on a bus. Goodness gracious, how horrible. What kind of heathens were you attacking nuns? I mean, this was like going out and stoning Mother Teresa. So then we started showing that these putting on their habit with a video, we videoed that, and we pushed back against the local do-gooders. And then the message stopped. But we protested nuns on a bus. That was one of our real high grounds. But anyway, I have wondered about that myself. And then I watched Jonathan Cahn's video. I watched him. He was talking about Return of the Gods, G-O-D-S, gods. And every leader, and I've sent it to all of our leaders, and I said, watch this at least 3 times. It explained to me why June is the month for the LGBT to really light up and take to the world. June. Why? I didn't know why. I didn't know why. June. I listened to him, and I've got Jonathan Cahn's books, read them, and then go back and reread them. But he explained that so intensely that this came from a long time ago, from Mesopotamia. And so I told our leaders, I said, we have been shadow fighting. Now we know without a shadow of a doubt, this is a spiritual war we're in. Before I knew it, but I didn't know it. Now I have the absolute scriptural map of it. The three primary pillars that was lost to the Supreme Court all happened in June. Marriage of the family, all three of the major legs under the family was lost in the summer solstice, June 29th.
George Soros and a lot.
And there's a part. And so he explained that, and I went, oh my gosh, that's the reason the left turns out. This is demonically driven. And when you go on, and Tom, you're in Greene County. I have family there. If you go onto Facebook and you look up groups that are pagan or witchcraft, you will be stunned at how many groups are right there in your area. You will be stunned.
Wow.
And so, and I mean, there's nothing that I can do about that, but I can know that. And into this is our number one goal right now. We're focused on the books in the libraries and schools, school libraries, public libraries that are totally pornographic, that it's legal for them to put them there. And the state makes sure they do because they make so much money off of it and blah, blah, blah. So we're pushing that with, and right now on MOBCAC.com, the pinned article at the top is very graphic because we put the pictures in there that's in the books. But this is demonic. Demonic. We pushed so hard against the local county library that the city council had a meeting and this man came to defend this book called Gender Queer. And it is one of the lightweights. I mean, it's literally one of the lightweights. But anyway, he came there and defended it and ended it by saying, because you only get 3 minutes or whatever, that the most challenged book in the county library in this state, in this county, and all over the United States is one book that is filled with filth, debauchery, murder, sex, crimes, and everything. And of course, he held up the Bible.
Bible, yeah.
The following Sunday, he was in his church. He dispensed communion.
Oh my!
These guys are good. I mean, they're really good.
Oh.
Good, Glenn. It's just incredible.
BJ, that's what makes your promotion of the Natural Family Month so important. You know,
Exactly.
from Mother's Day to Father's Day in June, because
June,
we need to combat that month of June.
Exactly.
Yep.
And when he BJ told me that, I was actually thrilled to know that. And I sent a message out to all our leaders. I said, hey, we're in, and this will give us a high ground to take into the public square that MOBCAC is in this to win it. And this is one of the high ground things we can focus on and not back up from.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate that. We mentioned you mentioned money, and I put something up on the screen because the Democrats do have a lot of money, George Soros, et cetera. Does money make that much a difference, Glenn?
Yeah. Well, yes, it does. I mean, it does. And we are not a 501c3, C4. We're not a C anything. Because I lived through the attack on the Tea Parties in Ohio by the IRS, and I saw good people destroyed. So when we rebranded, we dumped all of that. And so donations, and we have an event, people pay. Actually, it's sort of like pay to play. But anyway, we don't do that, which tragically we should have money.
I remember reading an article. You can stay on as a co-host, Tom, if you want. I remember reading an article. No, it was a video that I saw, and I think it was 2010 when this mess started with the Ohio Liberty Coalition. When you applied, you tried to do the right thing. You applied for I believe a 501c4, and the IRS come back with you with personal questions, probably down to your underwear size. I mean they ask incredibly personal questions, and who do you know, and who do they know, and what are their beliefs here, Am I right about that?
Totally. It was inconceivable. They wanted to know everything personal about us. My wife and I started this. Karen Lee she's the brilliant one. She always has been, and she was always very political. I mean, I voted for judges because their name sounded like a dog I had at some time. And then the judge would ruin my life. But so anyway, and that's the way most people vote. They have no clue who these people are, but they asked questions. They wanted to know every single thing about personally and the group. They wanted to know names, how often they attended, their phone numbers. And I said, no, we're not giving you that. Well, you have to. No, I'm not going to do it. And we had our attorney was sitting there, and I said, tell him to, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it was very colorful and timely, and it worked. But I watched good people try to do what the government said to do, and it just literally tore them to pieces. You cannot appease a bureaucrat.
This wasn't 1 month. This wasn't 6 months. This was over a period of years, right?
Yes.
And harassment. Can you imagine the contact and how you feel like, oh my goodness, the IRS is on me now. If I don't answer this, then I'm going to be in deep trouble. They're going to audit me. They know enough about me. But that went on for what, 2 or 3 years, Glenn?
Nearly. Yeah, it was over 3 years.
Over 3 years.
And then the lawsuits after, when they said, oh, well, yeah, you're right. We couldn't do that.
Now it's done. Now it's over with. Now that they did their job, but you always have to take those real bad experiences and use those in the future. And that's kind of the basis of what you're doing with your organization, to include the form of your organization. This is you're a lot like the Natural Family Foundation. You're an idea, and come support the idea. Okay.
If you want to, and we keep online if a pastor says, am I going to lose my 501c3, which they always think they're going to do, I keep on there, these are the things you can do, and here's the list of the attorneys you can get a hold of, and they're going to defend you in a court of law. And so we keep that up there and for everyone, because they all think they're going to lose their 501c3, which they won't, but that's irrelevant.
Never happened.
It's
never
a good excuse not to do something too.
Yep. Fear God, not man. I think that sounds familiar. Maybe it's from that nasty book that gentleman was talking about. Maybe it's from that, the one that gave communion.
But that intimidation works, and it's sad that it works. And they've got money behind them. One of the other things they have behind them, like you say, is they've kind of co-opted the education system. They're brainwashing our young kids and indoctrinating them. I was talking with my sister on the way back from the tennis tournament on this last Wednesday, and she said there are some bright spots, though. I know, and I don't know if Jeff is still on, but I know that there's programs where they can take the kids out of the school for an hour to a place where they can teach them the Bible, then bring them back to school. And my sister Jenny says that there's several schools around here in the Dayton area where that program is very successful. Up to like 80% of the students say, yes, I want to go out for that hour and learn about the Bible.
LifeWise Academy. LifeWise Academy is the name of the group.
Excellent. So is that something that your group could team up with, Glenn, or because that seems to be a movement that's working and a necessary one, right?
And that's a wonderful thing. I never heard of that. That's wonderful. And I'm glad you shared that. And I want to get a hold of you, Tom, once this is over with.
Actually, get a hold of BJ. He knows more about it.
I'll get the information to you, Glenn. I got the information and the contacts. Okay. Go ahead.
One last real quick. The government has done one thing very well: force people that both parents work, and they have to have a government babysitter. Mm-hmm. And that's a total disaster.
Well, if you want that free health care, that free education, that free housing, that free food, I mean, you got to work for it. Wait, excuse me, what? It's free. I have to work. Hey, Glenn, when we come back from break, I want you to tell our audience how we can help you. If we need to contact somebody about something, are there contact numbers? Do they just go to the website? If they go to the website, what do they look for there? The bottom line is, how do we work together to help strengthen you and your organization. BJ Edwards, along with Mr. Anderson, this is your last call.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we're back. Betty, do you know anything more about LifeWise? Anything you want to comment about that?
Yes. They have just started it at our school, and they.
Oops, we lost Betty. We lost Betty accidentally.
Hang on a second, Betty. We're back with you.
I'm back. Sorry. But yes, they started it at our school, and they'd have to leave. I'm not sure yet all the information, but they have to leave the school and they have to go somewhere for an hour. So I'm hoping it's to a local church that they're being supported. But they were also must have been donated a bus, and it's painted red with LifeWise on it to transport the kids, because the way I understand, and I might be wrong, they couldn't use the regular bus drivers and the buses. So they got the transportation. So it's set in play. And Glenn, I have done a couple of things. I've been to one of your meetings. I think it was last year. I live in St. Clairsville, Ohio. I wish you were here. And Tracy Foraker keeps me kind of on tabs on what you're doing. So when you have sign waving in Cambridge or close to it, I'm there.
They're
Thanks,
getting
Betty.
ready to do that soon.
As a matter of fact, I believe next Friday they're going to be doing against abortions, and I got my sign and I've got a T-shirt coming, so I am set.
Good.
Cool. So how much, other than just getting Betty involved with you, how else can we help you, brother?
There are things that are so simple for people to do. I 78, so it's not like I'm 40 anymore. I have a incredible friend, lives in Beaver Creek, Pastor Donovan Larkin, that is doing so many wonderful things in that area. But to help us, if anyone has a group it doesn't matter, anywhere, and they are, I don't want to use the word floundering. I don't want to use that, but they are not. What I try to convey to groups don't ask your local political group to send somebody in to talk to you at every meeting. Don't do that. Don't waste your time listening to a politician talk. You're not educating anyone on anything, and you're not setting up any action plans to accomplish anything, because these people will just talk you into ad nauseum. Because once someone's elected, forget what they say. The only thing you look at is how they vote. I don't care what they say ever after they're elected. How did they vote? Period. And they can't make excuses. What they get people to sign with you, BJ, is so blindingly important. But if there's a group that's listening that would like to become part of an action organization, we have the material, we have the footprint that we can help them actually turn a docile group into, we'll put steam back in their boiler. And we'll try to get them right up there at 212 so they can blow a whistle. Not just meet, greet, eat, and retreat. I got so sick of that. Come for the show and then go home. And that was the end of it. There was no war.
Sadly.
And we're in a war, and warriors would go through all the training and then pack up and go home. So if there's one out there, we can help.
Is Donovan Larkin over in the Dayton area?
Yeah, Beaver Creek.
I live in Beaver Creek, Glenn. So if you can get the information to BJ, I'd love to get the information so I can.
The after show, you can exchange that information.
There we go. Perfect.
And this is about networking. But if I'm the director of the Natural Family Foundation, don't I have to divorce myself from the Natural Family Foundation to join you? I mean,
no, we're an action organization.
Oh, okay.
Citizens Action Coalition. We coalesce around those people that have a godly foundation. If they want to sit and take our money and drive around like other groups, no. No, we don't do that.
The thing you have to be careful of when we do things is to use our time and monies wisely.
Oh,
I was
yes.
part of an effort this last year and it's an awesome effort to do for medical right to refuse. We were trying to do a petition that needed 450,000 signatures in order to get on the ballot.
Yeah.
And people have put time and money into that and collecting signatures, and we still have come nowhere close to getting that. Unfortunately, the demonic side, they got their, I guess, 450,000 signatures real quickly to get the abortion amendment on the ballot for November. I think they brought in people from out of state to do so. So, like I said, again, it shows the fact that they were very organized. They had money behind them. They brought in people from out of state.
Yep.
Somehow they collected all these signatures that those of us who've been trying for months, haven't come close to getting. So
that is so, you have hit the nail on the head. Our group, you cannot waste your people's time, their money, but you cannot waste their time. And you can't take on, so often we want to back up and see a 200-year-old oak tree and we want to rip it out of the ground because it's really bad. We want to go take out the president. How many people do you have in your group? We have 50. Really? You're going to take on a national organization? Forget it. Find something you can win at.
Local.
Yes.
If it is nothing more than pulling a weed out of the ground, yay, we did it. But we didn't pull that oak tree out of the ground, but we won. And people say, I like winning. I like doing that.
There you go.
And that is the single most important thing, is to knowing who you can and who you should never try to do.
One of the people I follow is Pam Popper.
Yeah.
Who is, and she's saying, she's convinced, don't waste your time trying to do petitions and get your elected officials to do anything. She says, in terms of the COVID tyranny, she says, sue these people, hit them where it hurts, sue them for money, sue their pants off. That's where you can get them to stop doing these, this tyranny over us.
We teach people how to write FOIAs, and FOIAs is absolutely the Achilles heel, because they have to answer it, or you just forward that to the Attorney General. And if this board doesn't answer it, off it goes. And we FOIA. One guy said, we're going to have to hire more people because of this wretched group. There you go. We're a wretched group. Now you know they're bleeding. Mm-hmm. And so you just keep sending those in. And we found, wait a minute, you have to stop me, BJ, because I'll go off on some tangent. No, I want to tell you this real quick. We FOIA'd a Board of Education to the point we found out that the president of the board sent an email to the teachers union which is illegal, that sent an email to the teachers union saying, we need you here to offset this group.
Wow.
Read it to the board at the next meeting and said to the attorney, what are you going to do about this? This man right here sent that. What are you going to do now? Of course, they can't answer anything during a meeting, but everyone's sitting there with a sign. And you pick those things you can win. And boy, FOIAs bring out stuff you had no idea. And we got like 4 lawsuits going on right now.
BJ, you're a fan of that, right? You go on offense, don't you?
Yes, sir. I like to ask questions. I mean, I don't want to come. You don't walk into a house and say, hey, your baby's ugly. Yeah,
you're what?
Your baby's ugly. You don't walk into somebody's property. Which we do that most of the time, don't we? We accuse. Well, I like to go, well, what is that over there? Does your baby always dress in that? Get them to start thinking about what you want to talk about and get them to bring it up. Or like the case of the natural family movement, we're putting them there. We're making them be the naysayers, the haters. Mm-hmm. You get them to show them. And all we did was, hey, what about a natural family month? Yeah, you guys are doing this wrong and you're terrible and it's unbiblical. No. Well, why don't you consider a natural family month? Mm-hmm. Oh, now what do? You're supposed to yell at me. You're supposed to throw a Bible verse at me. I don't know what to do. Help me. And you're right. FOIAs are incredible because it's that light click that goes on that they don't want you to see. Oh, do they not want you to see that? I love the idea of FOIAs. We don't do it enough. And it's as good as having 25 people in a meeting, right?
Exactly.
Yep. Or both are fine too, I guess. We've got about 4 minutes left. Anything you want to leave with our audience today? Again, we have an after show. You're welcome to stay around, Glenn, and share some information with the folks. I'm sure they have some other questions for you. I will get you that information on the LifeWise Academy.
Thank you.
I've been trying to work with a lady in New Hampshire right now. And I talked to the developer, the director, and I have his contact information. And we'll just get you guys together and see how you can help one another. Because
thank you.
They would love to do something like that. And here's the positive. We're offering this to students. Would you like to participate? Would the students like to participate? Instead of demanding, which you're not going to get anywhere, that you put a Bible in the classroom, you take the kids out of the classroom and introduce the Bible to them then. I mean, if it works, it's skinning the cat one way or the other. It's skinning the cat. And I encourage that kind of activity. It requires you to, number one, this is really difficult. It's very difficult for me to do because I'm an entrepreneur and I know I'm always right. And I'm a talk show host and I know I'm always right. So you got real problems when you're going to talk with me, okay? Know that up front. But the toughest thing that I have to do, that we all have to do, is go, okay, let me think about this. This is really difficult for me to do. I like to jump into that water until I'm head into my ears with it and go, you know what? I probably should have taken swimming lessons. Seriously, that's the way I am. And then the entrepreneur nature, which is the same thing, and the talk show host, which is supposed to be the same thing. But be honest with you, I am probably the most insecure introvert that you'd ever want to meet. But nobody's doing what they need to be doing, so I got to step out, and it upsets me that I got to do it, and John Jones doesn't do it, who should be doing it. Okay, he can do it a lot better than I can. Why am I having to do this, Lord? And then I do it again. Okay, I don't stop. You can't, once you get bit with a righteous bug, you can't stop. I ask you now I've eaten up 2 minutes of your time. A couple of minutes, any last minute notes you want to leave with us, brother? And thank you very, very much for taking the time with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been very helpful.
Well, I just thank you for having me on. I live over here in the woods and no one knows where we are. And, but no, all joking aside, this is very serious what you all are doing. And I just am really thankful that you had us on. And again, if there's anyone listening that we can shed some light and help them, we're certainly open to helping in any way we can. And so, it's movcac.com, and they can reach me at movcac.com. Email is movcac@yahoo.com, and or through you, or but anything we can do to try to help someone. And the thing that I want the most is we're trying to find men.
Yeah.
This for 20, 30 years now, the demasculinity of men has proven to be highly successful.
Glenn, we're going to have to end it on that. Help Wanted Men.
Thank you.
B.J. Edwards, along Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. Glenn, hang on. Thank you all. Have a good weekend. And remember to do, if you see a need, that's your calling. Thank you.
Join us next week for Last Call with B.J. Edwards.
And we are off the air. And Betty, you had a question. I'm sorry we couldn't get to you. I'll bring you in here. I'll bring everybody in. That's JC. You're awful quiet.
That's okay. I just was going to say a couple of things. I don't know if he's on because I see help on.
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to thank him for starting that group and doing